Hello and welcome. My name is Doro Shin, Senior Director of Content Marketing at Informa Pharma Intelligence. Thanks for joining us today for our presentation, Machine Learning Approach to Predicting Patient Enrollment, Managing Risk and Accelerating Timelines in Study Feasibility, brought to you by Informa Pharma Intelligence in collaboration with ICON. The presenters for this session are Simon Gibbs, Head of Informatics at Informa Pharma Intelligence, Ashley Schwalje, Director of Strategic Partnerships, also from Informa Pharma Intelligence, and Ruth Lawler, Vice President of Data and Applied Analytics at ICON. And with that, I'll hand things over to Ruth, who will kick off with an overview of today's agenda. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Doro. So we're going to cover a couple of different topics today. We're going to start with talking about what are the most common challenges that we see today in clinical trial feasibility. And these are challenges that I think have grown over recent years, but the purpose of the partnership between ICON and Informa is really to proactively address these challenges and see where we can improve this process and really add additional value using data and new technologies that are out there. Which brings me on to my second point, how we are tackling these challenges with the machine learning approach. And I'll talk a little bit about the machine learning approach, as well as how that actually then applies from a process perspective and the work that we are doing to make sure that we can apply these technologies in how we work today. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about looking to the future. So what comes next following on from the work that we're doing today. So next slide, please, Doro. First and foremost, let's start with the challenges that we see today in the feasibility space. There's a couple of key parameters, I suppose, that everybody really needs to be aware of. The first one is that every study is unique, and every study must be treated as something that is unique. It has unique requirements, sponsors, therapeutic areas, potential patient populations, and unique challenges. And that needs to be factored into each and every single feasibility study. Equally, very often, feasibility is done at the pre-award stage. So it's done early on in a study, and the timelines tend to be really, really tight for this. So it's really important that the teams have the ability to access the right data at the right time, but it also needs to be in a manner that is consumable to them, so that they can use this data in the most appropriate way to come up with the relevant scenarios for the particular trial in order to tailor each scenario to the relevant opportunity, to the relevant study, without, I suppose, being overwhelmed and without just showing a mass of data. This is a group that really work with a staggering number of data variables, and that the volume of data variables and the volume of data that is available to us as an industry has increased significantly over the past number of years. And that's brilliant. It is absolutely fantastic that we have more data. Equally, nobody has access to all the data. So you really need to make sure that you have access to the most relevant data and that you can also use it in a very short time frame. So there needs to be a lot of work done in advance around pre-aggregating this data and having data models there that you can tailor and tweak in a very rapid and iterative manner so that you can produce the best output for each study or trial that you're working on. And as we all know, with this volume of data, it's of no use if you can't use it. So you have to be able to operationalize it. And one of the challenges is making sure that our teams can use this data in the rapid timeframes that they need to, and that they can create models that make sense operationally, and also that can be consumed by people who aren't necessarily data scientists or feasibility experts. So being able to visualize that data is also one of the other challenges. And I've mentioned already, we're operating under very tight timelines when it comes to study feasibility. So with all of these factors combined, really what it's showing is, feasibility is not just a science, it is also an art. It is a combination of the two. And the skill set that is needed for a skilled feasibility group is someone who can manage very tight timelines, someone who can consume huge amounts of data and create a meaningful interpretation of that data. Somebody who has therapeutic expertise, and also people who know what's going on in the industry and in those therapeutic areas around the world. So in summary, it is a challenging space. These are highly skilled people, and we need to do what we can to enable the use of data to make their lives easier and to make it smoother to run study feasibility. Next slide, please, Doro. So despite these challenges, we have an extremely experienced feasibility team in ICON, and we do consistently deliver above and beyond. And as we compare ourselves to industry, we consistently deliver faster cycle times, particularly when we look at areas like the time to first SIV, the time to getting our sites activated, the time to recruiting patients. Equally, we have been very focused on ensuring that we pick the best sites, quality sites, but also sites that are going to enroll patients. And, you know, this is an evolving challenge, though. It is something that is going to continue. So we have historically done really, really well at this, but we need to make sure we maintain that focus. And that is one of the reasons for our partnership with the Informa team. They're going to speak a little bit more about it in a couple of slides. Next slide, please, Doro. So talking about, just again, kind of closing out on the challenges. So across the industry as a whole, there's been a lot of research done on what these challenges are and how they impact the clinical trial. So as an industry, about 80% of clinical trials deliver late. That is a staggeringly high number. And a very significant number of sites fail to meet their original enrollment goals. And one of the parts of the puzzle for the feasibility teams of today is marrying the feedback that we get from a site around what their enrollment projections are with the data that gives us clear insight into actually what is going to happen. And this is really where the power of predictive analytics and machine learning comes in. It is enabling us to marry that and enabling our feasibility group to use their experience along with what the data is telling us and along with what the site feedback is to come up with a realistic plan for a study that will help to mitigate the risks of delayed failure, poor enrollment, etc. And finally, the last figure on the screen here is one that I think, not that it's a scary figure, but it's a very concerning figure. 50% of sites enroll one or no patients in their trials. That is a huge cost to what we do as an industry, and that is an area of key focus for both ICON and Informa in this partnership. And it's an area that we have invested heavily in to date. And ICON, as an example, you know, based on the latest industry figures I have seen, we're standing at about 20% better than industry when it comes to our volume of non-enrolling sites. Equally, we can always do better in that space, and that is something that we are very focused on with this partnership. But moving on to the next slide. This is why, as I mentioned, we are partnering with Informa. This is an area where past performance is not always going to predict on its own future performance. We need to make sure we are moving with the industry, with the technologies that are out there, and really getting ahead of this and remaining best in class in this area. So with that, we have invested significantly over the past couple of years in machine learning in ICON. We've developed proprietary technology such as OneSearch to assist with site ranking, etc. But we're now at a stage where we really need to move beyond that, and we need to leverage the core competencies of ICON and the core competencies of Informa, and really bringing together our expertise in operational delivery and Informa's expertise in machine learning and using cutting edge technology to really deliver analytical technologies and solutions using the depth and breadth of the data that they have combined with ICON's data. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Ashley to talk a little bit more about the partnership.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. All right. So our partnership story began last year in the context of Informa's new product, Sightline Study Feasibility. Sightline Study Feasibility is a solution that combines Informa's best-in-class clinical data sets with machine learning algorithms to generate predictions related to study feasibility. So users of this solution can predict, model, and optimize their feasibility scenarios and predictive outputs, which include site allocation, site scoring, enrollment duration, and probability of enrollment success. So as with all of our product development initiatives at Informa, we sought extensive feedback from the industry on our development plans for this tool, including from ICON. So during these product development discussions and feedback sessions, the idea of a partnership was born. Next slide, please, Dora. So as Ruth mentioned, we recognized that we had complementary strengths in expertise, capabilities, data that would really make it make sense for us to join forces. So specifically at Informa Pharma Intelligence, we have decades of experience building products and analytics with gold standard clinical data that's curated, structured, and enriched by our expert analyst teams on a daily basis. And we also have a wealth of data science and technical expertise that we're bringing to the table. Meanwhile, ICON has extensive experience and expertise as a leading CRO, so we recognize their ability to help us make the best possible feasibility solution. They also have critical in-depth performance, enrollment, and activation data that we at Informa Pharma Intelligence don't have. So again, a very complementary opportunity. Next slide, please, Dora. So we set off down the path of a partnership with a combined objective, right? So we are looking to create a cutting-edge predictive analytics solution that is accelerating time to first patient in, is increasing the percentage of selected sites that enroll patients, and takes out cost and manual effort in day-to-day feasibility operations. So now I'm going to pass over to Simon to tell you a little bit more about our approach in this area.
Thanks for that, Ashley. So yes, I'm just going to talk, I guess, a relatively high level around the approach that we've taken to actually not just develop the models and the algorithms that are powering the predictive analysis, but also how we integrate and the different data sets that we actually use to integrate and develop features within the models. As Ruth said at the start of the presentation, there are a huge number of data variables and data drivers that effectively feed into the different types of study feasibility analysis. So whether it's looking to predict enrollment duration or study startup timelines, or also looking to rank and score and identify the sites and investigators you should be working for or working with, sorry. There's a very wide variety of different data sets and different data features that need to be brought together. And this is really where the collaboration between Informa Pharma Intelligence and ICON kind of pays dividends. Within the Informa Pharma Intelligence portfolio, we have expertly curated, highly structured historical data sets covering the full kind of clinical remits around protocol design, trial benchmarking, as well as all of the attributes related to the sites and investigators that are associated with those studies and delivering the trials. And ICON then have that deep operational expertise where they have the site level performance data and quality data, as well as the country activation and study startup timeline data. And so the platform that we've developed provides a secure environment in which we can integrate and harmonize all of these different data sets together, and then look to either develop features off of those related data sets, or using other machine learning and NLP techniques, be able to generate engineered features based on the combination of different data sets that we have. So then using those different features that are engineered, we look to essentially build out and experiment looking at individual features, but then also combinations of different features to understand the impact of those different data drivers on the predictive outputs that are being generated by the model. We use those features and the models to train across a set of data, historical data. We look to typically test across a subset of 5 years worth of historical trials, and then look to predict forward to understand how accurate our predictions were. So essentially the way that we do this is to make the predictions based around the enrollment rates or the enrollment duration forecast, look to understand how this compares against the actuals for those studies that have been completed beyond the period that we've used for the historical training sets, but also comparing to the benchmark analysis as well. So where you may be using traditional or more traditional statistical methods to develop and understand and forecast future enrollments, looking to understand how the machine learning algorithm compares to that. We then use those combination of different machine learning algorithms to make the feasibility predictions. And really, there's a collection of different algorithms that are in play here. Not only do we, excuse me, use a combination of different algorithms to produce the different predictive outputs related to country site footprints and optimization of site distribution at the country level, as well as then the site and investigator ranking and the enrollment duration and enrollment rate predictions. We also make predictions at a range of different confidence levels. So for each of those predictions, there's also then 12 other predictions that sit in the background, providing outputs based on a range of 0 to 100% in terms of confidence ranges. Those confidence ranges are then aggregated together to create a median for which we then start as a basis for providing those predictions. But obviously, we have the confidence ranges, so dependent on the level of confidence and understanding of the protocol design or the therapeutic area that the study is being run in, you can tweak and change the outputs to weight against those confidence levels. A microservices architecture then exposes those models for users to interact with through a kind of product-based user interface. So users can build different scenarios. We have a range of different data inputs that can be user controlled alongside the few hundred data features and engineered features that kind of sit in the background. And users can very quickly model different scenarios within the interface and dynamically see what the impact is of those feature changes as they iterate through different types of scenarios with the different outputs that are being generated. From those outputs, the ICON team can then use the information or the data-driven analytics to be able to inform and determine the best approach for executing their study. Next slide, please, Dora. As an example of the different types of outputs and the way that we visualize the data, it's just an example of some of the types of outputs we have within the product. We look at kind of 3 core metrics. This is specifically related to the enrollment rate and enrollment forecasting that we generate within the product. The first is a global probability of enrollment success, where we're really looking at the likelihood of meeting the target enrollment number based on the study design or the feasibility design and the different data drivers that have been selected. We look at predicting an enrollment rate. And again, you'll see here we're showing this at the 50% confidence level, which is the median based on all of the other 12 different predictions that we provide in the background. And then we also provide predictions based around the enrollment rate here. So in this case, we're actually providing a range from 10 to 90%. And so what we're looking at here is the number of months predicted, again, based on the hypothetical scenario that the user has input into the system. We then look to visualize that information and actually start to plot out, well, okay, so what can we expect here in terms of the number of patients recruited and at what time and at what milestones throughout the duration of that enrollment period will those patients likely be recruited? And we're essentially showing the confidence range here based on the, I think it's the 10 and 90% range. So essentially what we're saying is that there will be X number of patients recruited along this timeline to the point that we'll actually reach that target number of accrual, which is represented through the dotted line in the middle. And from that, we can actually get an expected value based on time. So we can say it's going to take X number of months to recruit this number of patients. Next slide, please, Daria. So really, where are the benefits and the value of the machine learning approach coming into in terms of building out this type of study feasibility analytic, particularly in comparison to, I guess, more traditional benchmarking or statistical approaches? So really, where we see the benefits being fourfold. Firstly, we can develop predictions and we can generate predictions for specific trial designs that may not have 100% match in the historical data. So as we look to optimize and match up the features from the user design or the scenario design against that historical data set, if there is no direct match, we can kind of work through decision trees in the background to build an identical match with associated studies that may be in a slightly different phase, maybe in a slightly different patient segments, or even in a slightly different indication. So we don't always have to match that historical trial, but we essentially learn across the entire corpus of the historical clinical data that we have access to build up that most optimal trial design, and then look to generate predictions off the back of that. And this is highly valuable actually when we're looking at potentially rare diseases where there isn't as many historical studies for us to be able to base our analysis upon. Through the machine learning approach, we can also understand the impact of specific trial design elements and data drivers that are impacting the enrollment timeline forecast, as an example. So we utilize SHAP analysis techniques to be able to identify which data features are positively or negatively impacting the outcome and of the predictions. And this also helps inform the ICON team in terms of understanding where they can potentially make tweaks or changes to the study design. So is it, for example, the countries that have been selected, or maybe the mix and distribution of sites within those countries? Is it the timelines, when what the expectations around when certain sites or when certain countries may start up, as an example? And this really provides further insight into how the model's working and provides a level of explainability around the models as well. We can certainly save time through the scenario modeling interface. It's intended to be highly iterative. The outputs and the predictions that are generated are in real time. So you can very quickly adjust those scenario parameters, understand and see the impact of that scenario on the prediction, be able to compare against previous or scenarios that your other members in your team may have created, and look to optimize that study design to deliver the best potential outcome in terms of enrolling patients. And then finally, and I think this is really one of the real benefits of the machine learning approach, is the ability to process and handle a very large amount of data. And not just a large amount of data, but a large amount of complex data, some of which is structured, some of which is unstructured, but really eliminating the additional manual work that's required to interpret and understand that information that a human would potentially have to do, versus allowing the machine to be able to learn and understand and interpret that data without the necessary requirements for actually integrating and standardizing a lot of the information as well. And so really that frees up the ICON team to focus very much on interpreting the analysis and understanding how they would design the actual study, versus understanding or having to review lots of historical data in the background. And for that, I'll just hand back over to Ruth.
Thanks, Simon. So Simon spoke, very clearly and concisely about what we are getting out of this, and I just want to reiterate the benefits here are huge, and it really is about ensuring that we can maximize the output of the data into a single environment for a feasibility team, so that they don't spend that time aggregating and manipulating data from multiple different data sources, which is something that across the industry, I think there are a lot of people doing today. We're giving them a tool that provides them with the ability to map scenarios, model scenarios at the click of a button, where that data is there, it is already integrated, aggregated, curated, it is ready for them to apply their expertise in relation to the study design, etc. And that really has been a key objective of ours. Related to that is the usability of the tool. There is no point in having this data, this really, really smart technology, if it doesn't work from an operational perspective, from a process perspective, and from an end user adoption perspective. And that is something that has been quite key in our ways of working here and in our partnership. And it was something that we were very clear on from the outset. So we have brought in our operational experts, and they have been very closely involved in this, because a key part of being able to operationalize the data is understanding the current processes and the as is and the to be state, and making sure that the user interface and the solution that we develop is fit for purpose when it comes to people actually using it. And I think that really is one of the key success elements here, is that usability at the end of the day of that data, which is the only way that you can really capitalize on the technology and the data if it's actually used. In terms of success measures that we're looking at, so first and foremost, ensuring that we deliver, that we propose the right countries, we select the right sites based on both quality and their ability to recruit, which all feeds into being able to accurately predict the study timelines and accurately predict our recruitment and enrollment curves, to ensure that we continue to deliver operationally either at or ahead of our expectations. And I'm really excited to have this tool deploy over the coming months and really see that work in progress. As we look forward, where do we go to next? So for me, we have developed this tool specifically focusing on the feasibility stage of a trial. But as we iterate this, I would love to see this being a dynamic tool where we can input data in real time from trials. So as unexpected things happen, as challenges arise, can we implement a situation whereby we get that real-time feedback from a trial, and then we iteratively look at, so what is happening, how do we plan for these risks or challenges that we can potentially identify using the machine learning technology, using those predictive algorithms to see, okay, we're actually going to go off course here far before a human would potentially detect that themselves. And this really will also add to overall study delivery and ensuring on-time quality delivery of clinical trials. It's about our ability to proactively identify and manage those risks using data before they ever even become apparent in the traditional methods that would have been used here. So that's something that I think is a very exciting future iteration of the type of work that we're doing here today. With that said, I'm going to hand back to Ashley just to wrap up.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, so it goes without saying, I mean, we're really proud of all of the work that we've done to date. And we do look forward to, as Ruth said, testing our work in the context of real life use cases. We're really looking to achieve a tangible return on investment from a cycle time and an efficiency perspective for both clinical trials as well as for ICON's internal processes and workflows. So more to come later this year and into next year. Next slide, please, Dora. So on behalf of Informa Pharma Intelligence and ICON, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our talk, and have a good rest of the day.